My name is Taylor Thompson, and we're coming here live in the She Network, where we are sharing her excellence today with my beautiful, amazing friend, Miss Staci Hall. Now, I tell everybody hi, Staci. I am so excited to have you here. Ladies, as you are coming on, let us know you're here. Hi, Ashley. Welcome, welcome. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're coming in from. We've been having a lot of international visits here lately. So let us know what country or state or wherever you might be rolling in from. We want to say hi and how are you. Make sure you let StreamYard give them permission to show your name. Otherwise, this is what we see. Facebook user. So we want to know who said that's my girl. So
yeah, I want to know.
I want to know. So just roll up there in the top, and there's a little link, and it says StreamYard allows you to say your name, show your name, so we can see who you are. So we want to say hi, welcome, welcome. So we have a really exciting interview here today. I'm super excited to have this beautiful young lady, incredible rock star here, and a lot of you may not know her, but our story goes back, gosh, it's probably been about 5 years now. I'm thinking 5 years. And so Staci and I met at an event it was a Top Earner Academy, recruiting and branding. It was a branding deal with Ray and Jess before Rank Makers. And so we just happened to just have a conversation and we connected. You know, like, I love it how whenever you meet somebody and you just make a connection and you just know, okay, like, I'm going to remember that conversation, right? I'm going to remember this person. I'm going to remember that conversation. And this was before you were, you know, a big rock star like you are now. Like, you know, I think you were just getting started and you were just feeling out, like, is this the right deal for me? And so how are you today, Miss Staci?
I'm doing so well. I'm just like pinching myself that I'm even here. It's such an honor and a privilege to be with you, Taylor, but also with your community, because there are so many incredible women in this community. And so it's an honor for me to even be invited. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking out time to be here. And, you know, we have some really amazing, ladies here in this group. I feel so blessed. I'm so happy that so many amazing women like want to participate and to be involved in this sharing her excellence community. And but let's talk about you. Like, this is about you today. Okay. So let's talk about that very first conversation. Well, you know what? Let's go back. Let's go back even further, and we'll get to that conversation and how you and I connected and how that, you know, what took place with your business. But take us back. Where were you raised? I mean, how are you raised? Like, where do you come from?
Yeah, it's funny. I hardly ever talk about this part of my life. And it's funny because this seems to be like the perfect place for me to share this stuff, because in the last year, I would say a huge amount of my growth has come down to actually looking in those dark corners and taking a look at how the way you're raised and the things that happened to you growing up influence you. And I was always that person who didn't want to share that. You know, in any social situation, I'd be like, just tell me about you, Taylor. Just more details about you. And I wouldn't want to share about me. Not because there's anything terribly tragic. I'm fortunate there isn't anything terribly tragic. But there were some things with my upbringing that in hindsight make me so hyper aware why I was struggling so hard when I first met you, Taylor. And so I grew up in a small town in Northern Ontario. And so it was a town of about 90,000 people back then, and there was nothing around you. So we were a border town, border with Michigan. So the biggest thing that I ever did in my whole life was go to the Traverse City Cherry Festival. Like, I grew up in, there was nothing going on. There was nothing going on. And my parents split up when I was very young. And my sister and I were the ones that actually caught my dad stepping out on our mom. We actually caught him. And so I know. So this is where it all stems from. And so
How old were you? How old were you at that
I
time?
was about 7 years old, and I think I was about 7. And so my sister would have been maybe 9, and we used to take the school bus to and from school. And in those days, this is going back a while, I'm not going to age myself, but let's just say in those days, parents didn't walk the kids to the curb. They didn't take them to school.
Yeah.
You walked yourself 3 blocks to the bus stop, and you waited for the bus, and you went to school, and you came home, and you walked home. And this is just how it was. And there was communities watch communities. It was just a different time.
Sure.
And so my sister and I would take the school bus to and from school. And on the way back from school, we jumped on, I've lost Taylor, so I'll just keep talking. On the way back from school, we jumped on the bus, and I was doing what I normally do. You know, I was just like sitting in the window and blowing on the glass and writing my initials in the condensation and just watching the houses go by. And I just kept on talking. Hope that's okay.
For whatever reason, I'm having some internet challenges, I guess because we're having some weather here in Texas. And Texas isn't used to having crazy weather, like, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so if that happens again, keep rolling, keep talking, don't miss a beat. But I'm going to take this opportunity. Ladies, please, let StreamYard know who we're talking to, because otherwise we see Facebook user. Just scroll up in the top, just say yes. So we want to say who's from Oklahoma. Like, we want to know, like, hey, Jackie, like, hey, Evelyn, thank you so much. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt there. So pick up where I cut out, because I don't want to miss that part of the story.
Yeah, no worries. So I was just saying that it was a day like any other. I was riding the bus home with my sister, and our usual routine, I would sit by the window. She would sit on the outside of the seat, and I would like blow on the window, write my initials, draw pictures, you know, and just watch the houses go by, because it's the same ride every single day, right? And so that's what we were doing. And then as I'm watching the houses go by, I all of a sudden see my dad's car in a spot it shouldn't be, in a driveway. And I see him walking down the steps with a lady. That was not my mom, obviously. Wow. And my sister just at that moment goes, oh! And she's looking over my shoulder like out the glass of the window, and we're at a stop sign. So we're about to keep on rolling. And I just looked at her, and she looked at me, and I'm like, that's Dad's car. And it was like this, I was only about 7, but I knew intrinsically what that meant, because the home was always tense all the time. So we knew something was up, but we didn't know exactly what. We were just little kids.
Yeah, 7 is young.
Yeah, right. And so when we went home, my sister's like, we have to tell Mom. And I was conflicted, because obviously my dad, I thought the man, you know, put up the moon and the stars. As a daddy's girl, I thought he was everything. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to narc out Dad. It's a very difficult spot for a 7-year-old child to be in.
Sure. But
we did ultimately tell her, and I don't think it came as any surprise, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Right.
So this is very fascinating, because, you know, first of all, 7 years old, you know, your parents are everything.
Yeah.
You know, and the loyalty, how do you break loyalty? And you run, and I don't know if maybe, were you aware of possibly running the risk of your mom not believing you? Did that ever occur to you? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I've seen and heard stories where, you know, whenever the child tells the other parent about infidelity or abuse, and then that parent goes in denial mode.
Yeah.
And then the child becomes the outcast, so to speak. Did that ever occur? Do you remember if that ever occurred to you?
Well, I was worried that she'd be angry.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew it wasn't my fault, but I just thought she might be mad that we're telling her that. I don't know why I thought that, but I was worried that she would be angry. And I was also kind of wishing I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
So that I could just go on pretending everything was okay.
Sure.
Because we knew it wasn't. Like, we didn't know what was wrong, but it was just, there was a lot of tension. My dad would come home sometimes at, you know, really late at night, and I would hear them bickering. I wouldn't know what they were bickering about, but there's always dissension and tension in the house. So I was kind of wishing I hadn't seen it, so I could just sweep it under the rug. That's kind of what we did, you know?
Sure.
But we couldn't. And we had to say something. And so we did. And ultimately, that led to my mom making the decision to finally leave. They had separated for short stints before, but this was like, she cleared everything out. She left him one pot, one pan, one fork, one knife, like as a 7-year-old. And then we're all packed into the car and we're leaving, and it's bye, Dad, you know? So
did you ever take any ownership of any of this? I mean, because I would have to imagine that there's some guilt that goes with that like, oh my gosh, I created this. I mean, did you take ownership of that kind, leaving your behind? I mean, that had to have been heartbreaking for you.
Yeah, 100%. I blamed myself for a long time. But I wasn't necessarily aware of that, honestly, Taylor. Like you bury it. But that moment, I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up, and I remember very distinctly being 8 years old. And by that point, we had gone through living in crisis centers for women on the run, basically, because my mom wasn't sure how he might react. He was never violent, but you just don't know. And she didn't want him to know where we were. She was afraid he would try and convince her to come back, all of those things. So we really were kind of on the run. We were living in a crisis center. We didn't have a home for a while. We were being bused from a different spot. Like everything shifted. And I very distinctly remember being like 8 years old and having very grown-up thoughts, you know, like thoughts that I can't imagine my 10-year-old daughter having now. Wow. About why am I here? Like, what is the purpose of this? Like, I've just destroyed my family. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Which obviously is not my fault, but those were the thoughts in my head.
Did you know why your mom left and not, I mean, like why she chose to leave with you instead of kicking? I mean, he's the one with the issue. So did you ever understand why, or do you know why that she chose to leave and not leave you in your environment?
That's a really good question. I think, to be honest with you, he wouldn't have left. I don't think he would have left. He would have just said, "You do what you got to do. This is my house."
Was your mom working? Was she a stay-at-home mom?
She was a nurse, and she retired to stay home with us.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't have any income. We had nothing.
Wow.
She left with nothing except a girlfriend to help her kind of find her way. But yeah, so I don't think he would have left. And she said to me, the reason that I made the decision to finally walk away is because I was willing to be made a fool of. And I would have stayed in that probably forever, because I'm a good Catholic woman. And I believe that when you take a vow, it's forever. These are the things she shared with us. Mm-hmm. But when you make a fool of my children, I'm done.
As any mother would probably do, right? You know, I mean, we're willing as as women, I think we take on more things, you know, just because we can endure some maybe self-esteem or all of those emotional things that from our past that make us who we are and think about how we see ourselves. But whenever it comes to your children, you become a whole different person whenever you're like, okay, you can mess with me, but don't mess with my babies, right? Because now it's a whole new why and why you do things. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, 100%. She didn't want to have her children believe that they were called to put up with whatever a man dishes out.
Yeah.
And she thought, if I don't take a stand, that's what my daughters are seeing.
Sure.
And so as an adult, I honor her courage.
Yeah.
As a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, my life was never the same again. So the emotions were very mixed.
Sure.
And they still are to some extent. They still are. You never really recover from that. You just kind of scab over a bit.
So, so tell me about, were you angry with your mom? I mean, because, because here's the thing. I mean, just because I'm asking this question, just because my children, my girls, I left, our situation. So I'm asking this for a very specific purpose, because no matter what, he's still the dad. He was still your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He did wrong.
Yep.
Mom pulled you away, right? She pulled you out thinking she's doing right by you, which now hindsight you can see. But at the time and in the moment, whenever you drive away from your dad, you see him with just one of everything. You drive away from everything that you knew to be your stability, your security, your life.
Yeah.
And go to uncertainty, chaos, not, complete an unstable environment.
Yeah.
What were you thinking about your mom in those moments? How did you feel towards your mom?
It's totally different than what you would expect. I was angry at my father because I was a daddy's girl, and to me, he was everything. And I felt very betrayed.
Yeah.
I felt very protective of my mom. I was not angry with my mom. I felt like I needed to take care of her because I felt like she didn't have anybody taking care of her.
Mm.
I was a little bit angry with my sister in a weird way, because I felt like if she hadn't have been there with me, I could have made a decision to not say anything. Like, I was sitting in that thought process at that point. But because she was older and she got the ultimate decision, she made the ultimate decision that we had to tell. I had a bit of anger against her initially, but mostly my pervasive emotion was, I'm the one who has to keep the family together now. I'm the glue. And I took that role on, and it never stopped.
So okay, so what happened? I mean, so as obviously your mom gets a job and gets you, I mean, so what happens and how do you get past this point? And are you been able to see your dad? I mean, because if you are in a crisis center, so she's got protection around you, how did you get back into a relationship, or did you get back into a relationship with your dad? What did that look like?
So in Canada in those days, they had something called mother's allowance, which is no longer a thing. But in those days, when a mom was in crisis and alone with her kids, the government would actually provide you like a stipends to cover the cost of your rent and your basic necessities. But that was it. She couldn't work because in where we lived, well, she could have, but it would have been very challenging because in those days, we're talking the 70s, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have childcare the way they do now. They didn't have shorter shifts or anything. Like, for her to go into nursing would have required shift work, which was just not possible. And that was what she did. So we survived on next to nothing. And we had Christmases that were just cardboard boxes from charity. We had, a lot of hard times. We didn't have any extras. We didn't have any opportunities. We never took a vacation ever in my entire childhood, not once. We never did anything.
So in Canada, what is it? I mean, so if your parents divorced, do they have such thing like, in the US, they have like a child support where, the father or the non-custodial parent, pays the custodial parent? Do they have any of those kind of arrangements?
They had them, but he never paid it. And she would have had to sue him. So we never got a red cent because it would have cost her too much in lawyers' fees.
Yeah.
So he never paid it. So
isn't that, I mean, like, Staci, like this right here, I think is a huge, I mean, it hasn't changed much, right? I mean, like, my mom, the same, my dad never paid one dime, right?
Yeah.
Me, I never got one dime. Like, there's, and it's, and to go through the legal system to think about how many women out there are in this situation and they don't have any resources to go and fight the battle because of the cost just to get somebody to engage in fighting the battle.
Exactly.
So they throw up their hands just and go into survival mode.
100%. Yeah. Mama bear.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So we did end up having a relationship. It was very strained, and it was always on his terms. But he was he was a largely broken kind of guy. You know, I think in his heart, he kind of loved us as best he could. I don't really know if he ever knew what that meant.
Yeah.
But, you know, he would, there were days when I would wait down in the apartment lobby. This will give you an idea of what it was like. You know how you're in the double doors and it's glass on both sides and you have the buzzer to get upstairs? Well, I would stand between those double doors for hours, like counting tiles. He just wouldn't show up on the days he was supposed to come. It probably wasn't hours. It was probably like 45 minutes, but to a kid, it felt like eternity. And I would click the buzzer and I'd be like, Mom. And I would just hear her like,
yeah,
you know, he's not coming. Sorry, honey. You know, like that was sort of the way it was for years. And honestly, like I didn't have a relationship with my father probably until I was in my early 30s.
Yeah. You know, so, you know, and I totally understand this, Staci. I mean, like I can relate to this on so many levels because, you know, I too walked in these shoes but whenever I came to the point and I realized that, you know, and you said something really key, and I think that this is true for all of us and in many relationships, is sometimes we have an expectation of someone and we expect them to be like the picture that we have in their mind.
Yeah.
In our mind, and we have, you know, daddy's girl, and you want to be loved in a certain way, and you're holding him to an expectation. And the truth of the matter is that these people that we hold, and then we become angry with them. And the reality is they don't even have the capacity to love in the manner that we want to be loved or seen or held or whatever that looks like. And whenever I came to that realization, I'm like, I'm expecting something of him that it's impossible for him to live up to my expectation. And as soon as I realized that, I was able to then forgive him.
Yeah.
You know? And so in your 30s, so well, how did that, so let's go back now. So how did this impact your relationship with men, dating, finding your husband? Because I know that there is a triple impact here.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, ultimately he ended up, my dad ended up moving 2,000 miles across the country, and he ended up raising another woman's kids instead of us. So when you talk about forgiveness, like I realized he clearly was capable, but he wouldn't do it for us. And I don't know if that's youth, because he was young when he was with us. He was older when he raised her children. But last year I went out to take care of him when he was dying of cancer. I'm not going to get emotional. And his family talked about him like he was God. The best dad, the best granddad, the most amazing father figure, took care of them like no one else. And I just stood there and I was like, this is what you were supposed to do for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So with my husband, I went through a series of dating people and made all my mistakes. So all the things that were big flaws in my dad that impacted me, I found someone just like him. So my dad had a problem with alcohol. I dated an alcoholic. Got that out of my system. My dad was, you know, a philandering whoremonger. So I ended up finding someone who was a cheat. You know what I mean? So I just ended up, all the big flaws that he possessed in my mind, I just went right for them like a magnet. Isn't it funny how we do that? Yeah. And then when I met Greg, my husband, who I've been with now since 1996, like we're like old slippers. He's like the most amazing thing ever. But honestly, he was an absolute misery to me for a solid year. And I don't think I would have stayed around and put up with it. I mean, I don't think I would have stayed with him if he hadn't have been, because I was so messed up that I almost needed someone to mistreat me for me to stay. Isn't that sad? But it's the truth. I needed somebody to treat me like I wasn't important, because that's what I was used to. And so he treated me like I wasn't important. He called me when he felt like it, ignored me when he felt like it, because he was going through his own trash, right? Yeah. And I stayed around and answered his phone calls when he decided to call me, like a little welcome mat, because that's what I was used to. But by the grace of God, he turned out to be an incredible human being who just needed to work through his own stuff. And together we managed to make it work. And he's an incredible person. I'm very blessed. And I'm just really glad I stuck around. And he says it all the time. I'm so grateful you didn't kick me to the curb. I'm so grateful.
Well, and isn't it so interesting, especially with women, and especially whenever you walk through those kind of childhood things, like it starts impacting you, how you see yourself and how you feel like whether you're worthy, you're not good enough, you don't deserve more. This is all you can get. This is the best it gets.
Yep.
And it's the lies we tell ourselves. And whenever you've looked in the mirror and you've been in relationships that repeatedly have the same kind of patterns, then you start believing there's something wrong with me, and you start buying into that identity. And I think that, whenever, as we're talking, as some of the ladies listening here, I believe, whenever you look at what you've been through and how you broke out, like how you broke the mold, how you broke the chain, how you broke this off of you to say, okay, no more, that's it. This part of my life is over. But what was the catalyst? I mean, so if you're in this relationship, what was the catalyst? First of all, if you're both dysfunctional, Greg, okay, so you're like, you're parallel, you're equal, we'll call you equally yoked.
Yes.
Right? You're both broken, you both have issues. What was it that broke the mold or broke the pattern that now it took your lives in a different way? Because very easily it could have been another broken relationship, but what was it? What was the catalyst? Can you tell me?
I think it's divine intervention. I mean, if you're faithful, I know you are, you know where I'm coming from. It came down to one night. So this one night, nobody's ever asked me that question. I've never actually shared this, I don't think. This one night, Greg, he was still pining over an ex that had dumped him, and he wasn't sure if he should be with her, should be with me, whatever. And he had decided that he was packing up and going to Spain for a few weeks to find himself, right? And when he got that ticket and he packed his bags, it's like something in me snapped. And I thought, oh my God, this is happening all over again. He's leaving. He's leaving. Like, everybody leaves. We always end up apart. And so when that happened, I was like, no. I am not having a replay scenario again with another man. It's not happening. So when he came to the door to say goodbye, I said to him, go find yourself, do what you have to do. But I'm telling you right now, when you come back, if you show up on my doorstep and you want into my home, that means it's me. I'm number one. I don't come number two to anyone else. I need one person in my life that I'm number one for, just one.
Wow.
And if it's going to be you, you need to decide, or don't come back.
Wow.
I just had it.
Wow.
And I knew, and I told my mom at the time, I'm like, I just did the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life, but I felt called to do it. And she said, what'd you do? And I said, I gave an ultimatum. I was never a fan of ultimatums, because I thought if you give an ultimatum, you better be prepared that it might not go your way. Right.
Well, so, but this part is true, Staci, because here's the thing. So many times women don't have the courage, and I say women, but we'll say people in general don't have the courage to not, and I won't use the word ultimatum, but draw a line in the sand. And it's like, you're not going to settle for less. You're not going to settle for leftovers. You're not going to settle for scraps, because you are worthy. You deserve more. I deserve more. My children, I deserve more. So I've always lived by this statement here, and ladies, write this down. The only relationship you can have is the one you're prepared to do without.
Yes, I totally get that.
And because here's the thing, if you don't have that kind of mindset in whatever relationship that is, a business relationship, whatever that is, and it's not about an ultimatum, it's about what you're not willing to compromise your values, how you're willing to be treated. You're not going to be somebody's doormat. And so it's like this. And for you to have that kind of mindset, to make that kind of commitment to you. Did you have children at the time?
No, we weren't even engaged. We weren't, yeah.
So for you to have that kind of wherewithal and mindset of like, I am worthy of more, and I'm going to not accept less than what I'm worthy of.
Yeah.
I mean, because the pattern would have continued. So what happened? What took place? I mean, he leaves, right? And then what happens? Like when he shows up.
Yeah, I think so. He was gone for a few weeks, and one of his best friends actually kind of took care of me. And I didn't know this at the time, but apparently he had a wicked crush on me, and he was so upset that I kept putting up with this stuff with my husband, with Greg, because he's like, you should be with me, but I didn't know that. But anyway, he kind of took care of me because I was really a mess. As soon as I made the decision, I felt like, what have you done? Like, I knew in my heart that I didn't ever want to go through that kind of pain again that my dad had put me through. And to me, this was it was going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I still second guessed myself because I didn't have a connection to worthiness. I really didn't. I don't even know where it came from. And that's why I say it's divine intervention, because I didn't feel that sense of worthiness.
I want to know, whenever you shared this with your mom, and you said, I really screwed up, and you,
yeah.
What did she say?
She said, you didn't screw up.
Yes.
You said what needed saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because she did it.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. Boom. Breakthrough. I was modeling what I saw. You're right.
I mean, so the path that she took you, as painful as it was, you did model her.
Yeah. And it was the right thing.
It was the right thing. And you did learn that, whether you may not have, it may not have been taught, but you caught it.
Yeah.
You caught it.
Because we do what they do, not what they say.
Yeah. Love 100%.
It. And in hindsight, it's a damn good thing she left, because you don't want me to model his behavior. That's for sure. Right.
Yes.
So, yeah. And so he came back from Spain and he showed up at my door, and I opened the door, and I just looked at him, and I was like, I just exhaled, because I'm like, please don't be playing with me right now. Don't be playing with me right now. Because I was all in love, like 100% every cell in my body. Right. And I said, if you come in, that's it, dude. I'm not playing. And he's like, I want to come in. And that's it. We've been together every single day since. We've never been apart for more than 5 days ever.
Wow.
Since then. Yeah.
Okay. So what a beautiful story. So
yeah.
Now, so you guys get married. So so let's take it like, how do you get to being an entrepreneur? How does all this start evolving?
Well, I was a professional hairstylist, so I jumped around from career to career to career, trying to figure out where I belonged. I had no idea where I fit. I just always felt like a loser on the outside looking in, no matter what I did. And it was all mindset, 100% mindset. And I was really good at things, because I turned into a perfectionist very early on to try and get my dad's attention. And it became a constant pattern. If I'm perfect, he'll notice me. Yeah. Right? Wrong, but that's how I was. So I became a competitive gymnast. I was a straight A student. I got the scholarships. I was #1 in my class. Everything I had to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I had my children, I had one thought. I need to make sure they have a father who's present and engaged with them, because it's the one thing I was denied, and I won't have them feel like that. I won't have them be like that. I just won't have it. Like, that was my heart. I'm like, I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure.
And isn't it so, like, I mean, ladies, like, how many of you have been in relationships, or you know, whenever you start your life, you want the things for your children that you never got to experience. Like, you know, drop some hearts and let me know, like, if you've ever walked in this pattern right here, because we always want something different that we didn't have, and we will move heaven and earth to make it happen.
Yeah.
So how long after you were married did you started having your babies? Because you have two kids, two kiddos?
Two. Yeah. So they're 13 and 10 now.
God bless you.
So we're talking like I stayed home after I had my son. So I've been home for 13 years, but I wanted to take the pressure off my husband because my goal was to have my husband be present. Yeah. Even more importantly than me, which seems twisted, but in my mind, that's my only goal. Like, he's such an incredible father. He's so awesome. I'm like, I just want them to have their dad. So I was looking for something, but I didn't know what, because I'm one of those weird people who didn't know network marketing existed. I had no idea. The only concept I ever heard of was like Avon, or there was like that one woman in every town who had the pink caddy from Mary Kay. That was all I understood.
And this right here, like, okay, so ladies, okay, so if you're in network marketing right now and you're watching, you're an entrepreneur, drop some fire in the comment section, because so many times women, once you get into network marketing or you become an entrepreneur, you think everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
The world is flooded with us and everybody knows about network marketing, but there is a world of people. There is a world of people who've never, ever heard of network marketing, or don't know anything, or they have a preconceived idea about it that's completely distorted, has nothing to do with the truth. And so your experience was Avon and Mary Kay. So you thought, okay, makeup, like a makeup salesman or whatever,
yeah,
right? Makeup entrepreneur. Okay, so you didn't probably even understand network marketing. All you probably understood is they sell something.
Yeah, Tupperware. That's all I knew. I was like, oh, well, that was my understanding of the world, and I didn't know anything about it. But I had an aunt who did that thing. I was on her chicken list. She called me up and she's like, would you be open to taking a look at a webinar? And I'm like, about what? Like, I had no idea. And we were not close at all.
Okay.
Like, I can't even remember the last time I'd heard from her before that moment, right? And I'm like, what is she calling for? Like, I was totally confused. But she said, well, it's a way to make some money from home. And I'm like, I'm in. Where do I watch? Because I was looking, right? Yeah. And so I watched the webinar. The company was completely the wrong paradigm for me, but it didn't matter. I didn't care if it was like rims for cars. I didn't care if it was toilet seat covers. I saw something where I could create what I was looking for, which is to give my kids their dad. I wanted him to be able to do something where he could work from home, which would involve a pay cut, a big pay cut, right? Wow. And so that's all I was concerned about. And so when I saw the possibility, I was like, where do I sign?
Okay. Right here too, because this is real important, because I connect with this so much, because there's so many times, like, whenever you're in network marketing and you default to the product. People default about talking about the product because they're so afraid of talking about the opportunity. And I want to use this right here, because this was me, right? If somebody, because I was answering ads and they were defaulting, whenever I was answering the ads, and they were defaulting to talk about the product. Mm-hmm. And it was a weight loss product. I just had a baby. I needed to lose weight. But I couldn't hear that. All I cared about, I just needed to make money.
Yeah.
To your point, there's a lot of moms out there to this day. Like, we have to be open. We have to be ready to share opportunity, because there are many, 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 many moms out there just like you who don't know, who would be open, who would love to have that opportunity, be walking in the same shoes, right? We've just got to be willing to open up our mouths. So this wasn't your right company, right? You were like, no, this is not for me. But it set you on a journey, like, okay, what else? So what did you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because if she had led with the product, I would have been out. Yes. I wouldn't even have looked at it. Yeah. So I struggled for 2.5 years. I struggled and I sucked. I was like as bad. I was like probably the worst one on the entire team. Like, I was so bad at it. Like, Taylor, you have to understand, my self-esteem was so poor that at that stage in my life, even though I was a hairstylist and I worked with the public, because I was behind the chair and they kind of treated me like a therapist, and they would just talk all the time. I could just be back there and do my thing. For me to assert myself was challenging. And so I wouldn't even make my own doctor's appointments then. I used to make my husband call for me, because being on the phone with another human being ear to ear was too intimate. I felt vulnerable.
Okay, so this right here, ladies, I love, like, gosh, I could have like a big old training over this conversation right here. So this right here is really interesting, because there's a lot of dynamics in this place. So you've got somebody that has a real burning desire. First of all, whenever you have burning desire, you can't teach that. You can't teach desire. You can't, I mean, so the desire was there. However, the confidence wasn't.
Nope.
So this is why environments, this is why cultures, this is why having, I'll call it an incubator process, is so critical, which, to your point, you talk about this, the communities, like why you think communities are so critical.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were so bad, how did that change, or what did you go? Did you want to throw up your hands and quit, or did you go, okay, I'm going to keep doing this till I get better? Or what? How did you know you were bad? I mean, like, tell me about that.
Yeah, I knew I was bad. I mean, the women at school at the kids' drop off, I felt like they were going to hide in the shrubs. Like I was trying, but I had no confidence and no skill set. Like, what are you going from? Seriously. The first time I picked up a phone, because in that company, you had to call prospects, which is like the worst possible thing for me at that time, but I was willing to do it.
Yeah.
The first time I dialed a number, I started to, like, you know how you get the forehead sweats and your heart's beating so fast? I threw the phone down and I went and I threw up. Like, that's how scared I was. Like, people, when they tell me I'm nervous about getting, you have no idea. I vomited. Like, I was terrified. So I know I get scared. Okay. But I was wanting to quit about 47 times a week.
Sure.
It was just terrible. I joke that, you know, there was like fireworks going off behind me everywhere I went. It was so pathetic. But I knew that I was good at everything else. And so there was something inside me that was like, you can't let this beat you. Like, this network marketing thing is going to beat you. Like, you're good at things. Why do you suck at this? So there was like something about me that's just stubborn, Taylor. And thank God, because I just refused to let something beat me, because I couldn't understand why I sucked at it.
I love that attitude. I love that mentality. I think that's, I mean, that, you know, do it until, right? I have that do it until attitude, you know, that, okay, there's nothing, I mean, like, okay, everybody else is working. It's working for this person and this person. Why is it working for me? I love that you had the wherewithal to question through that process. So whenever I met you, how far in this process were you?
Okay, so this probably would have been Top Earner Academy 2015. Does that sound about right? That, I think, might have been the same event where I cried all over Ray's shoulder. Might have been the same event, because that might have been the event. I just talked about it recently at his event when I spoke, because he was doing something when he was on stage where he was going from person to person to person, and he was saying, you are worthy. You are worthy, to each one in turn, and he was right up in their face. And when he was saying that, I knew, I was aware that it was supposed to build me up. I was supposed to feel good. But in that moment, those words just made me feel so terrible. Like, all that hurt just came up, and I started to feel like panicked, like a bird who's stuck in a room, right? And you're trying to get out, you're trying to find a window. I wanted to bolt. That was the instinct. But instead, I threw my arms around Ray and just started bawling in his shoulder like a lunatic. I was doing the ugly cry. There was mascara all over his lapel. I felt like an idiot. And when I looked up at him, I didn't know him. Like, you have to understand, I knew who he was, but we did not have a relationship. Right. He didn't know me. He didn't know who I was. Right? So he knew of me because I was in his downline, way far down at some point. Right? But I looked up and I was kind of thinking he might have me escorted out, maybe. And he just said, you know that you are worthy, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, Like, I couldn't even hear it, Taylor. Like, the words were like kryptonite. I was like, I can't take that on. I can't. Urgh! Like, I was struggling with myself. That's where I was when I met you.
No, okay, but okay, so let's talk about this right here, because the reality is that I talk to women every single day that are in this cage, this cage of belief, this prison of I'm not good enough. I will never be good enough. I can't measure up. I won't, and it's the film that they have in their projector of life, right? Because it's their environment. I mean, I always talk about this: environment is stronger than will, right? You're a product of your environment, and having someone like Ray saying, okay, you're worthy. Sometimes, and that right there, especially as you're in this journey, having someone speak that over you and to cast a vision before you can see it for yourself. We all have somebody that's in our life right this minute that we're 2 or 3 steps ahead, that we need to be seeding that vision for them, that they're worthy, that they've got what it takes, that they're good enough. I mean, like, that was the way that I was raised with Larry. Inside of our book, one of the chapters, it talks about, you are good enough. Be the best you can be, right? So many times we are not raised with that, but that had to have been like, because at that event, whenever, and I remember exactly where we were standing. It was right outside the door.
Yeah.
And, I was just having conversation, right? And I don't remember how I broke the conversation. I just said, I think I just introduced myself. And, I remember you just sharing with me, is this normal? Am I normal?
Yeah.
Is this right? Is this the way I'm supposed to feel? Is this what this tug of war, with my children and balancing all of this? I remember you asking me that. I'm like, yeah, this is the way it works. Like, this is it. Like, you're on track. You got this, girl. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact words of it. That was the concept. So, and then you shared something with me before. So talk about this part here, because I think this is something that everybody deals with to some degree. So tell, whenever, the eyelash conversation. So
yeah. So, first of all, I walk out when you introduce yourself, and I see this tall glass of water, because I knew who you were. Obviously, you're a legend, and I look up, and you're just this tall, beautiful, incredible. Like, I was in awe of you, and then you just spoke into me, which is so powerful. And to you, it was probably just the most, well, yeah, it's just a conversation. But then later in the bathroom, Taylor and Nadia Melton were in the bathroom. So imagine, I'm standing there, little me, and at the time I felt itty bitty, and I was struggling so hard, and I've got Taylor on one side, Nadia on the other, and I'm shaking inside because I was fangirling out big time, right? And they started giving me eyelash advice, because I was talking about how my eyelashes were sparse and falling out, and I couldn't get my face to look right, and I didn't know how to deal. And you guys were helping me out with that. And you were just being so normal and casual. And when you left, I was shaking, and I was like, oh my God, they're normal. Like, Taylor is normal. She's not made of, superhuman DNA.
yeah.
And it's bizarre to even think that way, but I really didn't recognize that you're just a person.
Wow.
It's obvious, but it wasn't real for me until that moment.
Well, and thank you so much. But here's the thing. I mean, I want you to, and so many times that we, we put people on pedestals, and which is, we're all human. We all have flaws, and we all have good and bad. But, you got to think about, if you think about, that's how, where you are now, that's how people see you. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, Staci Hall, like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing, right? And I mean, I'm like, look at all the amazing comments that they're saying about you, and I love that. But that was you know, how did that event change the trajectory of your business? Because to me, I feel like it was a huge launching pad for you because,
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
It changed everything. It changed everything because conversations with people like you and Nadia and people that I so looked up to who were mentors from afar. You didn't know you were my mentors, but that's often how it is, right? And Ray just speaking those 3 words into me.
Yeah.
Even though it was so hard for me to pull in, hard for me to take on, when I got home, I had a fire in my gut.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's okay that I'm terrible. I'm terrible now, but if I keep going, I'll be less terrible tomorrow. And I am not the quick success story. I am not that girl. Because I had to completely transform myself from the inside.
Yes.
To even be capable of leading another human being.
Yes.
And so now my superpower has become culture, instilling culture, because that's what I needed to pull myself up.
Yes.
And witnessing the culture that the Higdons created, and it's Ray and Jess both, you know, the culture that they created made me realize that I could give people a safe place to find themselves, to grow, to become more. And I made the realization that the reason I sucked at network marketing when I was so good at everything else is because you could fake it everywhere else and still work your way up.
Right.
You can't here.
Right.
Because in this profession, it really is about personal development. You cannot lead other people if you can't lead yourself.
Well, that part's very true. But here's the thing, what I want people to understand about personal development. Personal development, yes, you've got to have the mindset. You've got to have the film and the projector. But where you're going to get the growth, I mean, you can read all the books. It's no different than you could, if you want to become, I'll use the analogy of Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can watch all the videos, how to lift weights, and how to eat, and you can watch all that and get all the education, and we'll call that personal growth. But where the real growth comes in, I mean, so don't get faked out. I mean, I share this because don't get faked out by thinking if I'm reading a book that it's going, yes, you're going to grow here. But the real growth is going to the gym and actually lifting the weight, which is what you did. I mean,
yes,
you did that, right?
Yeah.
You did that with hanging around. Environment stronger than will. You did that, and you created that community, and you created that business around that mindset, knowing that how it served you is how you wanted to serve others.
Exactly.
Which is really powerful. I mean, I love this. I love that. So you talk about here, and is that, worthiness is not worthiness is a birthright and not an accomplishment. Explain that.
Yeah. Worthiness is a birthright. Like, that's the realization that I came to, is that I was connecting my worth to things outside myself that were quantifiable. Mm-hmm. What I accomplished, how many medals I won, how many, accolades I received, who loved me, who spoke nicely about me. Those were the things that I was associating my worth with. And I discovered through personal development, and what you're saying about this, personal development is active. It's not passive. If it's passive for you, you're doing it wrong, for sure, right? It's active, and it's often painful.
Yeah.
But I discovered through that process that therein lied the problem for me. My self-worth is not quantifiable by what I accomplish. It's existing because God put me on planet Earth. It is our birthright. And he doesn't create from templates. You're uniquely made.
Yes.
And so I realized if I believe that to be true, which I do, there's a disparity in how I'm acting based on the thoughts in my head and what I believe in my heart. Wow. And I need to reconcile those.
So powerful.
I'm worthy because I have blood pumping through my veins. If I wasn't worthy, I wouldn't be here.
Yes.
And I'm still alive right now, which means I still have a mission.
Amen.
Or I wouldn't be, right?
Amen.
Right. And so I want other people to realize that you may have been abused. You may have been mistreated. You may have been a victim at some point in your life. But when you start going out into the world and looking through that lens everywhere and judging everything based on what you see through that lens, you are skewing everything. You're morphing reality to fit a narrative you created about who you are and what you're capable of. And it's predicated on BS.
Yes.
And that's what I came to realize.
That's so powerful. Such wise words, just because, you know, it's you've got to listen to. I always taught my kids, you know, God good, devil bad, and you've got to discern which voice you're going to listen to.
Yeah.
Right. And if it makes you feel bad, it's probably the wrong voice. You're feeding the wrong voice. And so, and what you're saying is so powerful, because right now, if you're watching here, you have an assignment, and somebody in your life right this minute is your assignment. And you need to start getting your eyes off of you and the circle you're standing in, and realize that you've been in this journey, placed in this path, not for you, because it's not about you. It's about the person walking behind you.
Yeah.
You know, where you can be a hand, not a handout, a hand up, right?
Yeah.
And speaking life into them. You are worthy. I mean, how many times have you said those words to someone else, Staci?
Every single day.
And right there, it was a seed that was planted inside of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you are sowing that seed into other people in your group, in your community, because you caught hold of something. And that's the vision. That's what I want everybody to get out of today's, you know, what a powerful message we have today. Take this information. Look around you, see who's in your circle, see who's been placed in your sphere. And maybe it could be the most annoying person.
It often is.
Like you're stressed, like you're going, oh my gosh, you know, like maybe so they're blowing your phone up, whatever it is. But turn the tables around and see, how can I serve? How can I be a blessing? How can I pour a vision? How can I cast a vision for them? How can I edify them? How can I encourage them? How can I empower them today? What can I do? Who can I be that for someone else? And that's what I want you to walk away with today, ladies, is that, because Staci's such a great, beautiful example of what that looks like. So powerful. So share. Okay. So we're coming up here, and gosh, I can't believe how fast this has gone. Share with the ladies, like, what the takeaways, like, you would want them to know. What words of wisdom would you want to give them? You know, like, do you have like a quote or some scripture that you use as your go-to? Like, what kind of last takeaways would you like to pour into them?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many things that guide me, like signposts every day, for sure. You know, I resonate so much with what you and Larry teach around culture, and that is everything to me. And I instill that, and it's the only reason I've been able to create the success I've created, is because of being poured into the way the Higdons have, the way you have, and what you've taught me around culture. But my favorites, do you know Brene Brown?
Yes, of course.
I love Brene Brown. She says you either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. And that's what I was doing my whole life, is standing outside my story and hustling for my worthiness. And so one of the things that I share with my team and others is the story is not a place for you to sit in shame. Your story is what brings the power to transform others, to help them, right? To transform others. So share with authenticity, share that story, because that's what allows you to step into that worthiness and stop hustling for it. You don't need to hustle. You just are. Right?
I mean, this is one of the reasons why I created this network, why I wanted people to come in and really share their journey, share where they came from, share their background, share that story, that real place, because so many times we want to hide behind it because out of fear of how people will receive us or how they'll think about us or judge us. That's not the point. You know, your power is in your story. That's where that's where your true genius is. That's where your unique DNA, that's the whole point of it, where your mess is someone else's message. And so I love that. So so you're going to be teaching some ladies, like we're going to be doing some fun stuff inside the membership. So I don't know if you want to share any of that, or we want to be a secret and we'll just let them figure it out. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not really sure exactly. Typically, I do speak a lot about culture because that is my thing for sure. And just, you know, keeping people around the campfire and how to make everyone that you're working with feel equally valued in spite of where they are along the process of their journey. Like the people I work with, my goal is always to make sure that my top earner doesn't feel any better or worse than the person who just came in and knows nothing, because I will never forget what it felt like to be that person. And I do everything I can to build them up and make them realize how much I appreciate them just because of who they are and what they bring to the table. So, you know, those are my values mostly.
Speaking my language, I'm telling you, like I mean, been doing this 28 years, and that has always been my driving force right there. And every person's valued. Every person has the value, and no matter where they are. So Staci, it has been such a beautiful pleasure to have you here today. Ladies, I hope you got some incredible value learning from, hearing from Staci. Thanks for being here to support her. We're going to be doing, you guys put in the chat like something like, would you like, I'm going to either be starting coffee chats or wine chats. What sounds good?
I'm in for wine. Yay.
So you guys, ladies, be paying attention to that. We're going to be sending out some messages and sending out some emails, like how we're going to go about doing this and really getting some engagement and really doing some collaboration and building this community even more so and having a bigger impact. So thank you so much, each and every one of you, for being here. Appreciate you so much. Love each and every one of you. Go find out who you can pour in today. Yeah. And I'm going to say bye to you privately, Staci. So that's it for us. Taylor Thompson and Miss Staci Hall.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies.